firstly, it's lovely to meet you, John. I just wanted to start by saying, because you wrote the screenplay as well for this movie. I was wondering if this is an idea that's been with you for quite a few years.
Yes, but it kind of developed as I was writing it. So I had a few very rough ideas at the beginning about making a Western, and then coming from a sort of through European eyes, full of migrants, and so that, yeah, they were the first thoughts, and then the actual story and characters developed over time writing it.
I mean, the opening line, obviously, once upon a time, Jay Cavendish travelled from the cold shoulder of Scotland to the baking heart of America to find his love, a jackrabbit in a den of wolves. That's a great opening line. Did you just think of that and think, right now I've got to write a movie around it?
I think because that was voiceover, that was one of the few things that was written kind of during editing. You know, the script. That basically summed up all the thoughts I'd had while I was writing the script, actually. So. Yeah, I mean, I worked with a great script editor called Kate Lays, and we worked very hard on the sort of themes and as you say, the kind of, without getting too plotty, making it a story and making it a fairy tale.
Because I mean, I loved in the opening sequence as well. There's that kind of surrealistic element where the stars kind of sort of light up. And it kind of reminded me of the "Don't Be a Square" moment in Pulp Fiction. I was just wondering what the thinking was behind that, just right off the bat, to have a kind of fantastical element.
Yeah, I mean, I did want to set the tone, so I did want to say to the audience, this is a fairy tale, and this could take you places. I didn't really want it to be kind of too psychedelic. I wanted the whole film to be almost like a dream rather than crazy dream sequences. And then, I actually was thinking of the sky as a black cloth, and he was shooting bullet holes in it, and there was light coming through, you know, and I don't know where that came from, but that was the first idea about that scene. But yeah, just having, I think I did a trip to a ranch in Colorado and hung out with some cowboys that were moving cows. And and the sky is such a big element, and everyone's always looking at the sky, and they're always trying to find aliens, and they're always sort of, and I just thought in Westerns, that you never really look up, you know, so it's kind of, let's start the film by looking up, because it's such a big element of America.
So, I mean, obviously it's your debut feature, and you've got one of the finest actors in the world working with Michael Fassbender collaborating with you, and this is not obviously the first time. You made a couple of shorts with him too. Yeah. I just wonder how the two of you sort of came to know each other.
I got to know Connor, who's his agent at Troika, and Connor must have showed Michael some of the zero budget crazy films I was making with my mates, you know, sort of beta band videos, and I was trying to do little narratives with music video, or do little samurai films or action films, or and yeah, I think Michael saw something in them, and then when I happened to meet him a few weeks later, and he offered his services, I'm shooting, he was shooting Tarantino at the time, I think, but I managed to get one day with him, so I shot a film on my mobile phone that took a day to shoot, and that was the start of it, yeah.
Oh, it's funny because I mean you wrote the part for him too. Yeah. I read, and I was just wondering, does that make it kind of easier to imagine him in your head and then write to kind of match their own sensibilities, or can it even make it more limiting in some ways because you haven't got that kind of freedom to make them whatever you want them to be?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both. I definitely think it helps me, you know, and I started thinking about a few actors while I was writing it, because it helps just visually, you know. I was writing it visually anyway, so I had an idea in my head, even the Jay character, even though I didn't know who it was going to be, it was quite similar to the physical who ended up being. But so with Michael, yeah, you sort of, you know, he's so physical and so much of a force that it sort of makes it interesting to kind of either play against it or play with it, you know, and with this film, it very much was playing, without giving the plot away, playing with it and then starting to challenge that.
Yes, I mean, hypothetically speaking, if he wasn't able to do the film for any reason, was it so kind of tied in with him and his own kind of nuances, or that would you have to have changed it quite a lot if someone else was to take it on? Or do you think the character was quite full-bodied already that you could have just given it to somebody else?
I think it'd be a tough role for people to play because it was so kind of not underwritten, but there wasn't a great deal of dialogue. So Michael did a lot with his presence and his skill and the way he just acts with his eyes, and so there's a lot of fine subtleties that I think I'm glad that an actor of his caliber was playing that part. Otherwise it could seem like there was nothing going on, but you know, with him you can tell there's so much going on internally.
Because I mean, he's always a joy to watch on screen, but what's he like to direct? It must be a joy as well.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, you start off, it's hard to do more than one take because the first take's so impressive that I usually just go, okay, that's great, so move on. Yeah, I mean, and you know, I think even when I'm discussing, I get days discussing the character with them or the script, you know, you're getting a lot of ideas thrown around and a lot of good feedback and so it's a collaboration that sort of goes beyond just actor director as well, so yeah, very lucky.
I was wondering, it's not just him that obviously stands out. I mean, I love Ben Mendelsohn in this as well. It's getting to a point now where if a director or casting directors need someone quite unhinged, a little bit unpredictable, he is one of the go-to actors at the moment. I have met him. He's lovely, of course. I'm just wondering what it was about him that you felt would be perfect for the role as well.
Again, it's because he doesn't actually, I wasn't relying on him doing anything truly horrific on screen to say to the audience, this is a bad guy. You know, it's very, I wanted to try and give flaws to the good so-called goodies and give good points to the so-called bad guys. And, you know, it's really more about, the film's really more about desperation and need than good and bad, good and evil. So, so he can just add the menace even when he's being very polite, you know, and on screen. So it's, again, just that high level of, I think it was watching Animal Kingdom, first of all, when I was writing the script, to start thinking about Ben. And his ability to be unpredictable even when he's being nice to someone. So, yeah, which is not like he's not like that in real life, as you say, so, yeah.
I was wondering, I mean, obviously, your two shorts that you made was really sort of critically acclaimed. They did so well. I was wondering if it was always your intention, though, to make the move into feature-length filmmaking. Was that something that was a kind of an inevitability as far as you were concerned?
Yeah, I think I hoped so. And you need those strokes of luck, like meeting Michael, and then you need to sort of be prepared when it does happen, you know. So I have been writing scripts that were kind of just learning to write scripts rather than actual good scripts for a long time, and watching films and always working in cinemas and all, you know, and kind of, so yeah, always hoping that would be the end goal, yeah, for sure.
I mean, because the BAFTA recognition for your last short, Pitch Black Eyes, that must have been a great vindication for you. Was that almost the kind of the push you needed, just to think, actually, I am quite good at this. This is something I should do.
Yeah, I mean, it was a huge leap from, you know, I didn't go to film school. It was a huge leap from just doing filming with friends, sort of pleading for them to turn up here and just filming with them, to having Michael, which was the first kind of actor I worked with, and still thinking that the things I were doing were perhaps a bit kind of silly or something, you know, but, you know, it's a sort of, I think it's that kind of, silliness isn't the right word, but the kind of slight daftness that I think even comes into Slow West a little bit is something that I actually like, you know, and appreciate as much as sort of your high art. You know, I do like the sort of what people call low art as well, but I don't know if that answers the question though. Yeah, the BAFTA really, you know, it helps my confidence, it helps everybody else, you know, and it means that when I say I want to do a feature, and, you know, it really helps, yeah.
I was wondering, because I mean, you have sort of begun with a genre movie of sorts. Obviously, this falls into the Western genre. I mean, this film kind of affectionately plays up to the tropes of the Western genre, and yet it's still quite sort of unique, of course, in its own regard. But can you see yourself trying your hand at a different genre next? Can you see yourself sort of remaining in this field?
Absolutely different. Yeah, I think it was. I mean, I didn't think that. When you're thinking about your first film, a lot of people go to the sort of childhood subjects, or I thought it'd be quite fun to buck the trend and go for a big genre like the Western. But I think next, I would probably do the opposite, and try and think something contemporary, something maybe returning to the Pitch Black Heist kind of area of crime and noir. But definitely something different.
So are there any kind of filmmakers you admire that have a career kind of, I guess, arc, or kind of the way they kind of approach films and go from leap from one film to the next that you'd like to kind of emulate?
Yeah, I mean, I do think the Coen brothers, especially from when they were doing Barton Fink, Miller's Crossing, all the way to Fargo, and I think they were on this crazy roll of one great film after another and jumping genres, and I think that was definitely, and seeming to maintain a style throughout different genres, and have, I think that's something that's appealing.
I was wondering as well, I mean, even to almost contradict what I just said before, I mean, this can't really be defined by a genre in a sense that it's a very much a universal tale about young love, really, at its core. I was wondering if, when you were writing the character of Jay, if you were kind of relating to yourself or drawing back from your own experiences, because there's so much that anyone can relate to and how we were all kind of quite blissful, quite naive at that age, I guess. Yeah,
no, absolutely. I think the main thing was maybe being 17 and liking a girl that was 25 or something, and just not quite, this sort of it's hard to talk about this film without spoilers. But there's a few lines that she says that the sort of, I think all that was definitely coming from more of personal experience for sure. Yeah.
And I mean, it's also, about this boy's perspective of America. And again, could we be able to draw from yourself as a kind of someone perceiving America, and almost sort of in a quite romanticized viewpoint as well?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, that was the other reason for writing it, really, because as soon as I finished, it's not until now when I sort of look back that I realised I did sort of have this obsession by, when I finished college, I went to America, and a few of our friends took people's cars from city to city and travelled around, and and then I travelled with the band around a lot of America. So yeah, it's sort of somewhere that I think it's got that great mixture of actually being stunning, and then also having all the film references. So when you're in small towns, you start thinking of David Lynch, and when you're in New York, you think of Scorsese, and LA, you think of Chinatown or whatever. And so you sort of, it's got that kind of heightened mixture.
Yeah. No, it's incredible, because I was in Arizona last year, and I'm just everything I see is almost a movie. But was it a bit like that for you then when you were traveling around?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's an incredible place. Yeah. I was wondering, some of the finest kind of slow-burning westerns are pretty lengthy, and their running time could be quite long, but this falls short of the 90-minute mark. And I was just wondering if that was your intention from the offset, or did that sort of come about in the editing process?
No, that was very much, I said to everyone, let's aim for 90 minutes or around there. I think it's just my preference, and I thought I'm a big fan of noir cinema that's kind of, especially the endings, they don't just go on and on and on, like in noir cinema in the 50s, the good guy, the bad guy, the action, the end credits, pretty much in the last couple of minutes. So I definitely, wanted that. I think some films that really, when people talk about films being too long, sometimes they're talking about the end, the last half hour just keeps going on and on and on. But, so yeah, definitely, always shorter.
Because there's been an inclination of late for kind of blockbusters now just to be 2.5 hours. That seems to just be sort of almost like a rule of thumb that's expected. And if it's not 2.5 hours, you're quite surprised. I was just wondering why you think it might be that there's this kind of current need for these.
I don't know. It's unusual because you would think that they'd go shorter so you could have more screenings per day or something. It doesn't really make sense that way. So It could just be because of the structure. It could just be because of the formula of exploring the good guy, exploring the bad guy, the bit where the good guy almost loses, and then the massive end battle. You know, it seems that seems to take 2.5 hours. Whereas, you know, I went to see Mad Max, I think, a couple of weeks ago, and because the structure is different, it felt like I don't know what the running time is, but it kind of it felt like a shorter film, and it, you know, and because it had that different structure, it was sort of almost 2 halves rather than the 3 acts. But so that's good.
So do you still go to the cinema often, and do you still try and keep up with what else is sort of coming out at the moment? And,
oh yeah.
I'm just wondering if you still make music. Is that something that you're still sort of doing in your spare time at all?
I still collect records and spend too much money on records. I collect film soundtracks as well, and my brother's in a band, and I think I live through my brother's band now, so I go and see them more than think about being in a band myself again. Potter around, but you know, in order to get all the sampling stuff, I mean, it's just changed so much, and you know, I had a cranky old sampler and a 4-track, and I think, learning a whole set of new programs and skills. I like to DJ, so that's my musical outlet. I like to buy records and I like to DJ.
So I was wondering just how different the process is between writing a song and writing a screenplay, and what you would consider to be more challenging.
There's definitely a big challenge in film because of the longevity. You know, you can't really think of it as a whole. You have to really think, especially when you're writing and then directing. So you have to kind of break it down. But with the band, it's a lot more about the small dynamic. You know, there's 4 of you, and kind of with the film, in one respect there's 1 of you, in the other respect there's 80. You know, so it's a sort of different collaboration style. And what else? I think the similarities people might think is when you're coming to do the music on the film, but I thought a lot more about maybe the rhythm of the editing, and I think editing's where it mainly overlaps, because you're dealing with, you know, even the programs of Pro Tools and Final Cut are kind of quite similar, because you are dealing with cuts and rhythm. So yeah, definitely the editing process is where it's at.
Yeah, because I was wondering in regards to that. I mean, when you're writing music, I was wondering one of the things I loved about Slow West Side was that it was sort of 90 minutes or less, but it managed to fit so much in and felt so concise. And I was wondering if you think that the fact you've made such kind of quite grand kind of short films and written music, do you think that all kind of helped you kind of with the pacing and that ability to fit so much into what is effectively quite a short running time?
Yeah, I mean, that's just, I think the simpler things feel, then the harder you've sort of worked on them, you know, and in the end, when you see a film that's so complicated that you're in space, then you're in a lab and there's 10 different themes going, you know, and it almost seems that that's maybe more like a first draft because it's just so complicated. But I think when you boil stuff down, and like when you boil dialogue right down to one little line, then that's sort of taken much longer than when someone's just talking and talking and talking. So I think that was, in the screenplay, that was just hard work. And that probably relates to music. I think when you hear some of the best songs ever, probably like some of the ballads or Beatles songs or a Johnny Cash song, you know, it's a lot of the time it seems, or even like Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog, you know, it's sort of so simple that you think, oh, that was easy. But you know that all the hard work that's gone to sort of make it look simple is the art.
And of late, I mean, we've seen sort of smaller independent filmmakers, I guess, take on big blockbusters. Gareth Edwards went from Monsters to Godzilla, and then Colin Trevorrow from Safety Not Guaranteed to Jurassic World, of course.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if that's something you've ever given much thought to, if you'd ever, I don't know, if you've ever liked the idea of one day kind of stepping into a big blockbuster movie yourself and giving it a go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan. I mean, I started off being a fan of kind of the blockbuster movies of RoboCop and Die Hard and Predator and Terminator, and so those were the films that I first loved, you know. And so I think it's not so much to do with budget really. I think it's just to do with script, and a lot of those of that time I think were so high quality scripts and much more clever and sophisticated than people than they've got credit for now, I think. Even so, yeah, if something was interesting in that world, then that would be amazing. Yeah, because you do have the scope to kind of further your imagination when it comes to something like that. Yeah.
And do you think it's quite encouraging in some ways that the big studios are taking punts on filmmakers based on one feature that's done really well? I mean, Monsters I thought was excellent, and then next thing you know, he has been given that chance to take. Yeah. I don't want to call it a step up because it depends on how you perceive it, but it must be quite nice to know that people are paying attention.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I think so, and yeah, it's just, if you take it too soon or if you don't feel confident in that world, because it is a different world, then it could backfire. So it's a case of kind of really knowing what you want, because that's the whole thing about directing anyway. You just got to really kind of know what you want, and then it becomes a lot easier, you know, to get it. So yeah, I think if you kind of, it's to do with personality and to do with where you think you can go, but sometimes it's the right decision, sometimes it's not. But. Yeah.
So just my final question is just what sort of next for you? Have you got any projects in the pipeline you're writing at the moment?
Yeah, starting to write again, and you know, some scripts are coming in that I'm looking at, but not, you know, nothing's really hit yet that I've sort of thought this is it. So in the meantime, I'll just keep writing, yeah, and yeah, I've got a few ideas. So.
And these sort of new ideas, or are you sort of almost going back and revisiting ideas you had prior to Slow West?
I think they're kind of a mix, you know. I think if I go back to the kind of Pitch Black heist idea, then I'll sort of bring a little bit of what I learned watching a lot of noir cinema in, and then, but as far as kind of, you know, I do want to start fresh, and I do have ideas that, you know, because you sort of learn so much from your first film that you really want to bring on to your next film. So.
And collaborating with Fassbender again, hopefully. I mean, it's worked quite well for Steve McQueen. So.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, if the script's good enough, that's all Michael's. You know, if the script's good enough, then I'm sure, and the character's interesting enough, then I'm sure I can get word to him.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a real pleasure speaking to you.
Yeah, cheers.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.